What ride should you avoid in Disney World when you're prone to getting motion sick? I'm gonna share with you from personal experience in this video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Nasa and I suffer from motion sickness. All those warnings you see, they're for people like me, and yet I love Disney World. So I'm gonna share a few of the tips and tricks that I do, but even more the rides that you should consider avoiding or to be weary of, or the rides you should be leery of. I will state that I take no responsibility if you get motion sick on another ride or if they don't give you motion sickness. I'm not a doctor, I don't speak for everyone, but this is just from my own experience. And I have gotten motion sick / vertigo several times. That's landed me in the hospital, including once while in Disney World. That's already on the channel. That is a whole not so funny story. But anyway, I'm going to share what rides kind of can start to trigger it or that tend to trigger people who suffer from motion sickness. Now with that, this list is in no particular order from like most to least. And I will share, like I said, a few tips at the very end of things that I do that help me really well because I'm able to ride almost every ride in the park, and that's saying something. So with that, let's dive into the list. So very first, I'm gonna start with Remy's Ratatouille Adventure over in Epcot. Now this ride, this is a joke because a friend gave it to me, and it is the ride that triggered motion sickness and I ended up in the ER. So that is this little funny joke. I did ride it once before and was totally fine early in the morning. It might have been that it was the end of the day. I was a little tired. It gives a spin. Now this ride is a 3D ride. You're in a mouse, it moves around. There's some screens and moving, there's big sets. There's kind of a lot of pieces going on, and it did, like my sister-in-law, it made her a little bit motion sick. She was able to recover. She actually rode it again with my daughter who didn't go the first time. So all that to say, take it with a grain of salt. Many people will say if you just don't wear the 3D glasses, it's better. In France, their version is not 3D, and my friend said that it was way better, but I did not test that because I was not going to risk my trip on it again. So I've ridden Remy's and been done, but with that, it is one that it made me really motion sick with the spin. Okay, next up is a ride I actually have not ridden, and it's because I'm too terrified to do it, and that is Mission Space. It is one that they say that it is really kind of claustrophobic feeling, and it makes you feel, especially orange, it's not something that sounds like a fun ride to me, but also I really just don't want to trigger it. The green, if you're considering it, do the green side. It is supposed to be without the G-forces. This ride is like you're going in space, and they developed it with NASA, which is pretty freaking awesome if I do say so. But again, not one for me to ride. So I'm just gonna put this on my list with the disclaimer, I haven't actually ridden it, but I know others who have ridden it and felt motion sick after. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also, that is also in Epcot. Apparently all the rides are in Epcot. As is number 3 on my list, Soarin'. Again, not in any order, but Soarin'. Now, Soarin' doesn't actually give me any motion sickness. I can ride it perfectly fine. Typically rides that have screens are ones that will give people that motion sickness feeling because it's like not real. Your body is trying to compensate. Soarin' doesn't do that for me, but it can for some, so kind of be leery. But again, I think that because of the way that it's built, it's such a large space, I don't feel it at all. And in similar line would be Avatar Flight of Passage. It also doesn't. And typically if you just close your eyes, but we'll get to that, that will help. Now there is one version of Soarin' that does have one scene that will make me a little like, ooh. And so, but I just, again, close my eyes during that scene, and that is Soarin' over California. So most of the time it's Soarin' around the world as of 2024 when I am filming this, but sometimes the Soarin' over California version, they brought it back last year to Disney World, and then they bring it, I think, back every spring for Disneyland. and there's a part where you fly over like LA traffic, and I think the technology was just a little bit older, and the kind of lines, like it just makes me, with the traffic going one way and you're kind of, ooh, it gives me makes me a little woozy. So be leery of that. I keep saying weary. Be leery of that, but just note that you can always close your eyes. Next on my list, which funnily enough is also at Epcot, is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Now this ride I was kind of terrified over. I watched a lot of videos before I did it. My husband kind of talked about it. They have a lot of warnings that it can cause motion sickness. I rode it and was okay. I thought that it was great. It is like if you can do Space Mountain, which that doesn't cause any motion sickness for me. If you can do that, it is a smoother version of Space Mountain. There are some parts where you're kind of, and you do spin, your car spins, but not 360, and it kind of moves kind of like this. It is, again, so smooth. If the screen, it's not exactly a screen, it's like projections in there. If they start to kind of make you could close your eyes. Now, with that, I closed my eyes and screamed most of it because it was fast and I just had a lot of fun on it. So keep that in mind. Next on my list is a ride in Hollywood Studios that I don't actually see mentioned on any of these type of lists, but from my own experience, it'll make you a little woozy, and that is the Tower of Terror. Now, I'm going to be honest, I haven't ever actually ridden the Hollywood Tower of Terror in Hollywood Studios, Orlando, Florida, but I did ride the one in Walt Disney Studios over in Paris that is identical, except for the fact that the little girl is terrifying, like haunts you in your dreams. You don't move down a track at all in the Paris one, but the part that makes you motion sick is the same. Because it does this a little bit, I felt a little like, ooh, like after the end. Now, most of the ride, I was gripping on to the seat like handle and just closed my eyes and screamed, ah! But with that, I got off and was like, whoa. Now, it could be a little bit different. You may not have the same reaction, but I just wanted to put it on this list so that you could be aware that it might make you a little like afterwards. But also lots of people love the ride, so I don't know. Okay. Next up is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. This is the ultimate screen ride, but it puts you in the driver's seat. This means it's extra bumpy and can be so crazy. It makes me really nauseous and I pretty much steer clear of it, but my family does love it. It is very cool to see the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, so you can always go through the queue and then take the exit before getting on the ride. Next up on my list, we are moving to Magic Kingdom, and the first ride is the teacups. You had to know that it was coming, right? I mean, you spin in circles, and in your teacup that spins around, you can make it spin faster. So I'm okay doing this ride one time as long as my children are not having free reign of how many times it spins or how fast it spins, but I can't ride it multiple times. Now that could be more age versus motion sickness, and just like I don't have the same system as like my 5-year-old who she wanted to ride it. Like she rode it like 4 times in a row, but I had to keep sending her with different adults that were with us because I could not do it that many times. So just know that teacups, maybe just ride it once, but you know, if you start to feel it, just slow down on the amount of spinning that you're doing. With that, then we move to this one is a ride that there's multiple kinds like it, and that is Dumbo, so like a Dumbo style attraction. Now, I'm okay to ride these rides, but some people it might make them a little bit woozy, but they're okay. So, you know, you go up, you go around. There's Dumbo and Magic Carpets of Aladdin. In Animal Kingdom, there's Triceratops Spin, which is the same mechanism. And then there's also like Orbitron or something like that. It's all the kind of same ride basically, right? And again, I'm okay riding them, but I have heard some people like they don't like it's your spinning. But like I said, most of all, the rides that mostly affect me or with the motion sickness have the screens. So kind of being aware of that. And that's my list of rides that I just say to be aware of. Maybe not completely avoid, but just like, you know, maybe watch a point of view ride of it, see if you think you could handle it and get to know. But what about a couple tips for things that I do to have great days in the park? And I ride lots of rides. The first thing is I bring Dramamine. I take the non-drowsy Dramamine each morning on park days. I actually take it on my flight days too. It's just kind of maybe like a comfort thing, but just to do to kind of help any kind of motion sickness that could come from riding, changing elevations, doing kind of things like that. So I do that. The other thing I do is I make sure I drink plenty of fluids. It's already hot and humid in Florida, and so making sure that you're drinking enough fluids. I bring things like liquid IV. You could do like Powerade or Gatorade, things that kind of help keep you hydrated, because I know for me, the time I ended up in the ER, I was definitely dehydrated on top of everything. So that just kind of lends itself to leading to more motion sickness events or vertigo events. So there's that. Then and that what goes hand in hand with that is also making sure you eat enough. There's something strange about Disney where when you enter, it's like a time warp and it feels like it's been 20 minutes and it has been like 3 hours. So I'll be like, oh, I need to eat something. And so keeping up, making sure that you're eating enough food and then drinking that water are big. And then the other thing is just, taking breaks. Sit down in some AC, go back to your resort and rest for a little bit, and not just going rope drop to park close, because you might end up in the ER like I did. But we don't want that. So I hope that this helps you kind of feel confident going to the parks, knowing which rides you might want to avoid and which ones you're ready to hit hard. And if it was helpful, click that like button and subscribe. Find more videos on my channel, and I will see you in the next video.